I'm Professor Anthony Winnie St. John. Welcome to the course in International Negotiations. We're about to get started on a learning experience that has changed my life and my outlook on international politics. When I began my graduate studies, I looked at the world as one big multi-level chess game in which every country was locked in a lethal struggle to survive against every other country and non-state actor out there. Every player on that global chessboard, at least in my mind, needed to outwit all the others in order to do well. In the courses that I took on international negotiation, things changed. I learned that negotiation was something much, much bigger and deeper than a mere game of global chess. I learned, for example, that it was possible for everyone to win if we changed the rules of the game and the way in which we conceive of the game. I learned that negotiation was a skill that I could acquire personally, that I could improve upon, that I didn't have to be born a master Jedi negotiator in order to do well. I learned that if we don't do this well, that if we don't try to improve our processes and outcomes, then we would only have ourselves to blame for the world that we live in. We'll do much more than I ever did in my courses on international negotiation, even though they served as the inspiration for what we're going to do together. We'll explore a bit of the ancient world and come all the way up to the contemporary classic cases of negotiation. And we'll look at some of the very cutting-edge challenges of negotiation that confront the world that we live in. We'll get to understand something about all the theoretical contributions that have helped to create a really coherent body of knowledge about negotiation. We'll even try to improve our own behavioral skill by doing negotiation simulations, role plays, that I and others have created for you. It's my hope that you'll also find this knowledge to be very personally empowering and liberating, and professionally useful, and even a little bit mind-blowing as I did. Let me tell you a little bit about myself and my research interests and some of the practical experiences I've had that influence how I will teach this class, how I've thought about it and structured it. I've been researching and writing about international negotiations for 2 decades now, and have mostly limited myself to the international sphere. But I am also interested in the interpersonal dimension. What is it that I as an individual can do, even if I represent a government, an agency, or an organization? Because it does come down to people. So most of my writing has been about international cases, in particular some of the more challenging ones. Out in the field of international practice, I've spent some time I've been many times to Guatemala, where in the aftermath of their civil war, there were large efforts to do some post-conflict institution building, helping that country have a rule of law, reform its court system, and create a system of mediation that would be endorsed by their official court system. I've been to Haiti a number of times in the wake of their earthquake, in preparation for their electoral cycle, trying to help people there who are interested in leading their society away from electoral violence as well as other incidences of violence that plague the country for the many problems, structural problems and injustices that people there face. The bulk of my research on negotiation in my early years came from my knowledge and exposure to the Palestinian-Israeli case, the Middle East peace process. I conducted a lot of research on that, wrote an entire book on it that you will be thankful you don't have to read for this course. That book looks at the constant use of secrecy in the negotiations between the PLO and the Israelis and what impact that had over the long haul on the success and failure of that peace process. At the same time, I've been able to be a participant in what we call track 2 diplomacy between Palestinians and Israelis at the sort of junior level of the negotiations. That's where people come together without a real mandate to negotiate. They just come together quietly to see what's possible, to get to know each other as human beings before they get to the official negotiation table. I've been to Africa a few times, did some work in Uganda on behalf of the State Department, training Ugandan troops who are going to Mogadishu as part of a peacekeeping mission in Somalia. And I've been fortunate to be asked to go to Chad, where I got to work with Sudanese Darfur rebel movements who were trying to get themselves unified before they would sit down at the table with the government of Sudan. They have been hopelessly fragmented for a long time, and needed a little bit of unity and some knowledge on negotiation before they'd get to the table. My negotiation work has also taken me to do some trainings for the United States Army, for the Marine Corps Command and Staff College in Virginia, the Defense Information School at Fort Meade, and I've done a lot of work for an entity known as the United States Institute of Peace right here in Washington. The United States Institute of Peace is a congressionally funded, congressionally created entity that seeks to foster research as well as implement good practices on peace building throughout the world. Let's get started learning about international negotiation together.